office. I think I told you at the beginning of the story. I got a call from the office. Yeah, it's in the office. I had a call from the office of the Gerer institutions in New York, right? So he said the Rebbe's in town. If you want to come and see him, he'll be in New York through Sunday, and he receives people before Mincha. Now, in retrospect, I really did not check this out, and my wife severely rebuked me for this. Perhaps that can be construed as an invitation to come. I doubt it. The truth is, I don't know if the Ger Rebbe even knew at that point that I existed, because I did not contact him directly. It was the head of the New York office which actually notified me. But in any event, so yesterday I sent him a nice fax, the Ger Rebbe, at the suggestion of the head of the New York office, saying how we learn Yerushalmi, how we're 30 blocks behind, but hopefully because when I go out of town, it's hard to find a substitute, but hopefully, generally over the course of the winter, we make it up, we could get back, and we hope we'll finish hope we finish, and we began when everybody else began, and we should have a bracha, we can have a bracha for the shiur in general, that we should continue learning the Yerushalmi, and we continue to enjoy learning Yerushalmi, and the way we enjoy learning Yevamos, and then I asked for a bracha specifically for me to write Svarim and on Yerushalmi and other areas in Torah. So I got back a response today. This is the response I got back. Now, this is not yet the Mofis. So what I wrote, the Shamish, the person in charge here in New York, his name is Rabbi Agassi, wrote me back. L'chvod Rav Yosef Gabriel Beckhofer, Hashem Yarich Yamav Shalom, to Rabbi Beckhofer. Is that him? Hayali Esmo, I'll start recently. Hayali Esmo, I had yesterday, Ha'oneg, the pleasure, Lahachnis Lakodesh Pnima, to bring into the holy inner chambers, as hafax sheshalachta li avurecha, that the fax you sent me on your behalf. No? Nisati v'ladmor shlita, I gave it to the Rebbe Shlita, od lifnei shali, before I gave him my own personal note. Admor Shlita, the Rebbe, Kro Be'iyun Rav, read it with great interest. For Isi Sheponov Noharu, and I saw that his face was illuminated. Lemikra Michtav, when he was reading the letter. Uvem Sheikh Kishekara, and as he continued to read, Reisi, I saw Me'ein Chiyuch Shel Hana'ah, something similar to a smile of pleasure, Al Spasav Hakdoshos, on his holy lips. Ukishasiyem, when he ended, Nasan li Lechitzas Yad, he shook my hand, Uvma'or Panim, and with a bright face, Amar, he said, Hatzlocha, success. V'shuv Nasan es Yada Akdosha, again he gave me his holy hand, Uveinaim Zorchos, and with shining eyes, Hosif v'Amar, he continued and said, Hatzlocha un Torah, Hatzlocha in Torah. And then V'shuvi bita michtav, and then he looked at the letter again, B'mabat kloli, just in general. V'shuv nasan es yado, and again he gave me his hand. V'amar shenis, and he said again, Hatzlocha un Torah, Hatzlocha in Torah. Ad kan haya b'kesh la michtav. Up till now, this was all there was in terms of the letter. Shanira, which is can be seen. Shegoram koras ruach meruba, which caused great satisfaction. L'kvo kedushas moran amor shlita, to the Rebbe. The todah shezachisi, and thank you that I merited la'avi lakodesh pnima avurchem, to bring it into the holy room for you. B'derech hagav, by the way, I'm not sure what this is here. Kishel Basov. When at the end, HaMichtav Yatza Me'afax, when my letter came out to the fax, Mr. Dana, their office in New York. I was already on my way to go to the Rebbe. I took it as it was, Lakodesh Prima, inside to the holy presence. Without making any, without coordinating al tikunim to possible corrections. I asked him to look it over and see if it was properly written before I brought it in. It seems that it did not require any corrections. Because the Rebbe Niras Farotzon seems satisfied. Mizeh Ashrecha, and lucky yours, praiseworthy are you. Only afterwards, that I deal with my personal issues. And I think that the warmth which you caused the Rebbe, in your letter, Garma Gam, the Yinai Pratim, Hatzlacha caused also for me my personal matter success. V'gam al kach todara b'meni, and also in this many thanks for me. B'meni akosei b'kora, from me who writes with dearness. B'mefshar lamar as gam b'yedidus, and if it's possible to say also with friendship. Harav Meir Agassi. Now that's the letter, which was a very nice letter. The Ger Rebbe is considered to be current Ger Rebbe, as I told you. I think is considered to be a holy fellow, and it's very nice. Obviously, he responded very favorably to our learning of Yerushalmi. So this is I got this actually when I came home today for lunch. I found that my fax machine. It came in at it says here. I don't know if this is the wrong time, obviously, because it says the date is 1996. So I don't know what time it came in. I could check, I guess, my log. I don't know exactly what time in. Anyway, but the thing is, this morning when I come to the yeshiva, somebody came up to me. I don't want to say his name because his name would be known to you, but somebody his name who lives in the city, who said he and his father are thinking of starting a foundation to fund the translation of Sfarim, and perhaps to work with one of the big publishers like ArtScroll or Feldheim. And the first project that came to mind, which they had, was the translation of the Yerushalmi. So who knows whether the bracha of the Rebbe was not immediately fulfilled. Now, of course, I don't know if actually this is going to come to pass anytime soon, but it was a striking coincidence that I got this offer the same day after the Rebbe. Do you believe in that? Well, I don't know if I would like to believe in it. Let's put it that way. I don't know if I actually believe in it, but I would like to believe in it. I wrote in the letter, we thank you very much, all four of us who are not Chasidei Gur, but we are very appreciative of the fact that the Rebbe, two Ger Rebbes actually, was the one who founded this idea and pushed it, which gave us the schus in Yerushalmi. So it's hard for me to say. Like when I asked for bracha, my wife said, "Oh, you should have asked for bracha for your kids and all that," and I didn't. I just asked for bracha to learn and to teach. But so I don't know. I would like to believe, but it's hard to say being a misnagid. But maybe it is. Maybe there's something to it. Yeah, that's right. More something in people that they would like to believe in. Yeah, but it could be that it's true. It could be there certainly is point.
Beneath the surface of every misnagid.
Beneath the surface of every misnagid lies the chosid, Dr. Sadel tells us. Okay. Yes, not memes. A rapist and a seducer, a seductionist, shoite, and an imbecile who have relations with a regular girl. Lo poslim, they do not make her posel either to marry a Kohen or to eat truma. Lo ma'achilim, but by having had religions, of course, since they can't contract a marriage, they cannot allow her to eat truma. If these individuals are not suitable to be Jewish, to be married in Israel, were they to be, not to have raped her, or were they to be sane, Harei Luposlim, they do make her unfit. What's an example of this? If it's Israel Yisrael has relations by rape or seduction with a single daughter of a Kohen, Tocha b'truma, she may continue to eat truma. Ibra, however, what happens if she gets pregnant as a result of this rape? Then lo tochal, then she can't eat truma anymore because of her fetus. If the fetus got cut up in her fetus, which is of course not a Kohen, it's a fetus from Yisrael. Even though it's fetus from a Kohen, it's still a problem because the fetus doesn't allow one to eat. If the fetus became chopped up or aborted and somehow in her womb, then she can eat truma again. Now, with the opposite, what if the rapist was a Kohen who raped a regular Israelis? She may not eat truma. Ibra, if she becomes pregnant, lo tochal, she may not eat truma either, because again she's pregnant and fetuses are not allowed to eat; they just render unfit to eat. Yol, that she gives birth, tochal, then she can eat truma on the basis of her child, meaning her child, who's a Kohen, allows her to eat truma.
If he doesn't marry.
Even if the father married, and that's what the Mishnah says. Nimtza kochel shaben gadol shalav. So the son actually is superior power to the father in this case. Okay. Hadamara. Now this teaches us, this Mishnah, she'ein ontim poslim bekahuna b'pnuya, that if you rape a single girl, she still is not rendered unfit to marry a Kohen, rape or seduce. So even if a girl led a promiscuous lifestyle, as long as she didn't actually have relations with somebody who's puzzle to her, so she's allowed to continue to go afterwards and marry a Kohen, right? Now I tried to wait till you got here to tell over the moifes, and I wasn't able to wait to tell over the moifes.
Moifes wasn't the guy. That's the real Moifes.
No, that wasn't.
It was the brother.
It was the bracha there. The Ger Rebbe's bracha helped him there. We're in possession of a bracha from the Ger Rebbe.
That's very nice.
Yes, for Hatzlacha and Teira, and Hatzlacha and Teira again.
Amen.
He repeated it 3 times. Anyway, and also he made a moifis today for us. He actually sent me somebody, not intentionally, just the bracha, sent somebody who was thinking of funding the article translation of the Yerushalmi.
Really?
Yes. Who I won't mention because he lives in Chicago. But, so, bracha of the Ger Rebbe was McQueen very quickly, if we can take a sort of face value. Okay, so name it. Hadam Arasas teaches us, She'ein onsim postim mekuna b'pnuya. Hadam Isayel Udetani, this is a proof for that which we learned. Rabbi Chia said, Ishto, now the Shari Torah changed the Gemara before, and he probably changes it now. He does change it now again. Ishto shel katan, the wife of a katan, who of course cannot enact kiddushin, even the rabbanan. The shel shoita, who is also the same size, can't even enact rabbinic marriage. Tovels michek bailo, even if he's considered her husband in terms of some social parameters, halachically he's not a husband. So therefore, she goes to the mikveh after having had relations with her husband. Volchel should go eat truma as free as if she had never married him, because the marriage is not valid. V'dulok Rabbi Lezer. It's not like Rabbi Lezer. Rabbi Lezer says, as we learned previously in the Masechta, even an unencumbered man, a bachelor, has relations with an unencumbered woman, Shalol Hashem Ishus, not for the purpose of marriage, Hareis will be lasnus, and considered to be licentious relations, which renders her unfit to marry a Kohen or to eat truma for eternity. We don't pass like that. We only pass in a case if it's a bia psula, if the person who raped, seduced, or had relations with her was actually puzzle, like a mamzer or a goy, etc. Right? Rabbi Abba, Rabbi Yirmiyah said, Anusa, if a woman is raped, she does have to wait 3 months before she gets married in order to ascertain whose the child is. Now, the reason why she doesn't have to wait, says Rash, says Moshe Korbaneda, is because we assume that she will immediately take the RU-486 pill. That's not, it's hard to make out the word say RU-486, but we assume that she'll immediately take steps to make sure she doesn't become turning over, is the case what's brought down here, right? Okay, turning over. I don't know how effective turning over actually is, but in any event, she tries to do whatever she can So therefore, we don't assume she's pregnant unless she actually becomes pregnant, and then of course we do. Rabbi Yonah said, Rabbi Yossi, lo tekabo lecha. Now, do not accept what Rabbi Bar wanted to infer for our Mishnah, which is that our Mishnah tells us that. Because our Mishnah says that if she's raped, she can eat truma. It doesn't say you have to wait 3 months. It only says if she finds out she's pregnant, she has to stop eating truma. So it seems to be evidence for our Mishnah that you don't have to wait 3 months for a girl who's raped. So it says, no, don't accept the proof for our Mishnah, because it could be really she has to wait. So if that's the case, why can she eat truma right away after she's raped? Maybe she's pregnant, she should have to wait 3 months. They're more lenient by eating truma, either because eating truma is not so severe, or because it's the Rabbanan in our age.
It's not a matter of chesed, she's not pregnant until she...
No, because there's the Raisa, yes, but there is a rabbinic takana that a woman who was once married cannot get married after her husband dies or divorces her for 90 days. So we said that even though she has a chazaka, that she's not pregnant. So why don't we apply that takana to Rabbanan here? That's the question. That's what we're saying, that we don't apply it here either because a woman turns over, or because, and therefore she's probably not pregnant, or because it's a kula by truma that we don't apply the 90-day standard to check out if she's pregnant. So it says more, ilu bat kohen she's Yisrael, and I'll prove to you that it's a leniency by truma. If a daughter of a kohen marries the Yisrael, and her husband goes to Chutz La'aretz, and she heard that he died. Does she now allowed to eat truma immediately? Even though she can't get married yet, she can't get married until 90 days pass. Lina Uber, in terms of her child, her fetus, she has to check out. So we see that truma is more lenient. You can go eat truma immediately, even though you haven't waited 3 months yet. Period. Said our Mishnah, if they're not suitable to the rapists or seductionists, are not suitable to marry in the Jewish congregation population, they make the woman they raped or seduced possible. What are these? As long as the man is 9 years and 1 day old or more, and he is a ger, Ammoni or Moavi, a ger from the nations of Ammon and Moab, of course, are never allowed to fully become Jews. Mitzri, Egyptian within the first 3 generations. Ve'eved, and a slave, or a mamzer, a cholo, a Kohen whose parents were his mother was a divorcee. Nasi, a descendant from the Gibeonites. Kuti, a Samaritan. The goy, shebo abbas Yisrael, goy, or a goy. Shebo abbas Yisrael, abbas Kohen, abbas Levi, that had relations with any type of Jewess, abbas Yisrael, abbas Kohen, abbas Levi. Pesula min hakuna, they render unfit to ever marry a Kohen again. Rabbi Yossi Meir Kol Shazar Apostle. Rabbi Yossi says no, it's not all the situations. The word is going to give the difference in a few minutes. Kol Shazar Apostle, anytime their kids are apostle, Biasa Posels, then their bia, their intercourse with a woman renders that woman apostle. Kol Shein Zar Apostle, anytime their children are not apostle, and Biasa Posels, their bia, their relations don't apostle, don't render woman unfit. More is going to explain what he holds. Shigamliel Omer, same thing. More is going to explain it. Kol Shad Mutar Bito. Anytime you're allowed to marry this guy's daughter, Ad Mutar Ba'Manos, you're allowed to marry his widow. Kol She'enad Mutar Bito. Anytime you're not allowed to marry the guy's daughter, Enad Mutar Ba'Manos, you're not allowed to marry his widow either. Ma Beneu. What's the difference in the approaches here? The difference is, a ger Ammoni Umoavi Beneo. A ger from Ammon and Moab. Madamar Kol Shazar Apostle Posa Bioso. Any time the children are apostle, the bia of this person passes a regular Israelis, his relations. This guy, Hol is our apostle, since his kids are not suitable forever and ever, since he's from Ammon and Moab. The also posel, so therefore he has relations with a woman, she becomes unfit for kahuna. Mandamar, however, the appeal which holds close to ad mutar bebito, anytime allowed to marry his daughter, and ad mutar ba'amanoso. One second. It should be mutar. I forgot to take that one out. Kol shamuter bito at muter. Anytime you're allowed to marry his daughter, you're allowed to marry his widow. Meaning a Kohen is allowed to marry his widow. This case, Hoil, and here it should be at muter bito, the daughter of a ger from the Ammon and Moab is permitted to join the congregation of Israel. It's only his son is forbidden. Remember that? Ammoni v'lo Ammonis, Moavi v'lo Moavis. Like Ruth, right. So therefore, if that's the proof of the pudding, whether the daughter is allowed to marry a Jew or not, well, in this case, the ger Ammoni and Moavi, his daughter is allowed to marry a Jew. So therefore, his relations with the woman would not render unfit to become married to a Kohen or to eat truma. So that becomes the bottom line. If the guy was the type of guy whose children are always possible, so everybody agrees that he has relations with a woman, she becomes unfit to ever marry a Kohen. But if his boys are possible, but not his girls, because he's an Ammoni Moavi, so then his psul is not as strong, according to Rabbi Hashem Gamliel. Okay, since you're allowed to marry his daughter, you're allowed to marry his widow, meaning that even though she had relations with a person who's Ammoni Moavi, since the Ammoni Moavi's daughter is okay, so therefore she's okay. Right? Rabbi Yirmishim Rabbi Ba, Divrei Chachamim. However, the words of Chachamim, Rabbi Yirmiyah, Rabbi Ba, B'Shem Rabbi Ba, Rabbi Yirmiyah interpreted them named Rabbi Ba, Tarvein, and they both said, they both said about this case, Ger Ammoni Moavi, a ger from Ammon and Moab, Ubas Dor Sheni Mitri, and even a second generation Egyptian, right? The Egyptians only lasted for 3 generations, right? So she's Afapi Sha'at Mutter Bevito, even though you're allowed to marry the girl who's the 3rd generation Egyptian, nevertheless, also the 2nd generation Egyptian caused you problem, and once the man dies, you're not allowed to marry the woman. Okay? Rabbi Sakai and Rabbi Alexandria, Mishlach, they both sent a question. Shol asked, Bar Geramoni ubas dor sheni shomitzri. What's the status if vis-a-vis this question of the daughter of an Ammonite ger and the daughter of a 2nd generation Egyptian? Their mutter. What about their parents vis-a-vis kuna? So Rabbi Yosa said, Lo shmiel la'uta mar Rabbi Yirmiyah. Didn't you hear that which Rabbi Yirmiyah said, Shera Baran and Rabbi Ba, Rabbi Yirmiyah, Rabbi Ba, Tarve, and Omen, they both said, Bas ger Ammoni ubas dor shein shomitzri, the daughter of an Ammonite ger, and the 2nd generation of Egyptians, Abri Shamuter Rabito, even though you're allowed to marry his daughter, also you're not allowed to marry his widow. They're still forbidden. So it says, Merchosh is our apostle, be also psula. Says the Gemara, any time the kids are apostle, so then the rapist apostles the Kohenes, or this woman from marrying a Kohen, right? So it says the Gemara, I'm sorry, if everyone was asking her. It's not a question. It's part of the previous Gemara. Let me go back 3 lines. They both said, Baskir Ammoni Bas Dor Sheni, the daughter of Ammonite ger, and the daughter of the 2nd generation of Egyptians, Ava Bisha Mutter Bitam, allowed to marry his daughter Mutter Ba'amanoso. You're not allowed. You're also Ba'amanoso. You're not allowed to marry his Amona. And of course, Kosh's our apostle be also psula. 8 times the kid apostle, so the Bia is apostle as well. 8 times kids will be apostle that he had kids, so his rape or seduction answers the woman. So it says, it's obvious, we already know that already. Okay, so now talk about the following case, Imo mi Israel. Talk about a case where the mother was from the Jewish people. So we're talking about a Mitzri Sheni who married Israelis. So he wasn't allowed to do that. She wasn't allowed to do that, but they did it anyway. So the Mitzri Sheni married Israelis, and their kid, of course, is a Mitzri Shlishi Mutter anyway, right? So it says the Gemara, so we shouldn't say that if the mother becomes defiled, right? You have a case where a Kohenes. One second. No, it's not a Kohenes. Let's go. I'm trying to prove here. I'm drawing a blank. 1 minute. I understood it today. 1 second. Let me try it again. V'chosh is our apostle. Let's just do this line and assume it's a new line. V'chosh is our apostle biyosab psula. Anytime his kids would be apostle, his biyos psula. That was a line in the Brisa, I think, one of the Brises. Where was that?
It's not referring to the third generation ministry for that marriage that was.
No, but say it would have to be the first generation. The second generation's kids are okay. It's going back on the line on top, on the fifth line down, sixth line down. Rabbi Yossi Merkosha is our apostle, biyosab psula, right? Anytime the kids are no good, so the biyah is apostle, right? If he renders the woman unfit, if he has rachis, kosher ain't our apostle. Anytime the kids are not unfit, ain't biyosab psula. His biyah is not apostle. So what is this clause Rabbi Yossi saying? What's it coming to tell us? So that's the more it's going to explain. So as the Gemara, lo kein tzricha, we need his phrase, his clause for the following case. When the mother was from Am Yisrael. Don't say, just like the mother has been defiled, so too the daughter has been defiled. Don't say that, right? And here the carbonator throws in, we're talking about a Mitzri Sheni, a second generation Egyptian, who married a Israeli woman. So what happens if second generation Egyptian marries an Israeli woman? What's her status, Israeli woman? She's in Schala. But what about her daughter?
That was my question.
Oh, that was your question? Oh, so I misunderstood. I was half asleep. Maybe 3/4. So that case...
Why should the child be...
She's not. That's exactly... But the child is kosher. Because...
Even though it's from my illicit...
Right. Mm-hmm. Because his zera is not apostle. That's what Yossi's saying. Kosher is our apostle. He's poisel his daughter. If his zara is not poisel, he can't be also his daughter, even though he's poisel the wife. So it's had he married a regular Egyptian. Egyptian 2 married Egyptian 2, so the Egyptian 3 would be okay no matter what. So now that he married Israelis, it's true he renders her unfit. But since his kids normally would be okay, so they're okay even though they come from Israelis who's a chalola as a result. It's a fascinating concept, right? That's exactly what he's saying, okay? So again, look, it's Israel, so don't say, Kashem Sheschala Ima Kach Nischala Bita, just the mother's defiled, so the kid is defiled, the kid is not defiled. Rabbi Yaakov Baracha, Pli Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shimon Lakish. So Malakas Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shimon Lakish, Bas Ger Ammoni, the daughter of an Ammonite Ger, who Bas Dor Sheni Mitzri, and the daughter of a second generation Egyptian. Rabbi Yochanan Maksheres, Rabbi Yochanan says the kosher. Rish Lakish Hamar Psulos, Rish Lakish says the apostle. Rabbi Yosef Buna Amar, Rabbi Zkenos Pligin. Really, the machlok is not about the kid. The kid is definitely kosher, right? The question is about the mother. Rabbi Yochanan Maksheres, Rabbi Yochanan says the mother is kashera. Why is the mother kosher? Because of what we said before, that only when you apostle your daughter do you apostle with your biyah. That was the opinion we had before of Rabbi Yossi and Rosh Gamliel. Rosh Gamliel specifically. Anytime you were possible, you're anytime. Right, kosher, exactly. Kosher mutter bita mutter v'amros. Anytime you're allowed to marry, the daughter is permissible, the mother is permissible as well. So if a mitzvah sheni has relations with a regular Jewish woman, even though you should make it chalol, you don't, because since the kids are okay, right? So therefore the mothers also doesn't become a chol, right? Rabbi Yerushalmi says no, they're apostle nonetheless, because he holds like Tanakama before that even if you don't apostle the kids, still you apostle the one with which you had relations. Okay, halacha for evet posel mishum bia. If an evet, a slave, has relations with a regular Jewish woman, he renders her apostle. And a place mishum zera, but he's not apostle if he is a grandson. He doesn't apostle if he's a grandson. Wasn't me a grandson? It's a very good case. Okay, pays the tide. How's this work? I'm glad you asked. The Yisrael l'Kohen. Batzil comes, sir. You have a Batzil married a Kohen, right? A regular Jewish woman married a Kohen. Or a Batzil or vice versa. The older man who ben. Now, she has a child from her husband. Now, of course, this child causes her grief, right? Because this child prevents her from, well, it can cause her advantage and cause her grief. It can cause her to not to eat truma if she's a widow, right? If she's a widow of a, no, the other way around. 1 second. If you have a, if you were your Kohenes who married Yisrael, and you had a child by that Yisrael, so sorry, then that's it, right? As long as the child is alive. If you vice versa, Yisraelis married a Kohen, and the child is alive, then you remain a Kohen. What happens if the child died but the grandchild was still alive?
We said yesterday that if it's a Kohen, that she can still be true.
Right.
Even though she's a Bas Yisrael.
Right.
But her grandson is still a Kohen.
Right.
It's her son.
Right.
So she could be.
What if her grandson is not a Kohen anymore, though? But he is a grandson.
And she's a Bas Yisrael?
Yeah.
So she should. How could he not be a...
He's a Chol, let's say. It's gradually in the next Mishnah. She could still eat Truma. Because there's a vestige of her child. Right. Yeah. Deceased child, exactly. Now here actually it works the other way around, right? You have a case.
He lost the ability to eat when he was alive because he married
right. Right. Even though her son lost it, but her grandson is lost as a result. But nevertheless, he's a grandson from a Kohen. Now, again, Ben Yisrael Kohen, Bas Kohen Yisrael. The older man Ben, she gave birth to a son. Halacha Ben. Now let's say this son went. He was not the most upstanding man in the community. And he had relations with a shivcha, a slave. Behold, man of Ben, and he begat a son by her, right? Hareza Eved. That kid is the Eved, right? Because his mother was a shivcha, right? Since he's an Eved, he has no relations to his previous family members. Therefore, if his grandmother was a Bas Yisrael married to Kohen, lo tocham truma, she can't eat in truma because of her grandson, the Eved. If she's a Bas Kohen Yisrael, even though she has an excellent grandson, since he's an Eved, so he doesn't count, and tocham truma is allowed to eat truma.
This is not Jewish.
Yeah, of course. Right.
So he's not even Jewish.
Right. However, minayin should be also posel. How do we know that an Eved bia is posel? Meaning that an Eved. If an Eved has relations with a woman, she can no longer marry a Kohen afterwards. Says Ubas Kohen because it says the Kohen kisia mono grusha. If she's widowed or divorced, the Zera Ilan has no kids. Sheyesh oleh almonosa gerushin chozeres. If there's a possibility of being of almonos and gerushin, of widowship and divorce, then she can go back. Well, if there's some, I said that wrong. It says if there's zera, if there are children who are relevant to widowship and divorce, then she go back. if her children or grandchildren cannot have matters of widowship or divorce, so Eno Chozer, she can't go back home. Says more Asi Rabbi Yirmiyah. Right, so if grandson is an avid, so she can't go back home. Hey, so Rabbi Yirmiyah asks a question like this. Hare, it should be all unfortunate changes to Yevama. Hare Yevama shezinsa, not all, most of them. Hare Yevama shezinsa. If Yevama was Mizana, Hare ein la manasa gerushin. Right, she doesn't have, in this situation, widowship or divorce, right? B'chozeres, and she goes back, sorry. Right, she didn't have any state of marriage because she was in a state of Zika, right? But yet she can go back to Truma, I guess we're talking about, right? She go back to father's house to Truma, right? So even she's Mizana, even she has licentious relations. So Rabbi Yossi Lo Markei, and Rabbi Yossi didn't say it. And he switched around the statement, the perspective of Yochanan. The Gitin Omar, in Gitin he says, in Gitin he says, Kuti Mishum Mayim Sulim. Why is Samaritan's not good? Rabbi Yochanan should be Shem Rabbi Lezer, not Shem Rabbi Shol. Yochanan Rabbi Lezer says, Mishum Goy ve'eved ha'bo Abbas Yisrael havlad mamzer. Because if a goy or an eved have relations with a regular Jewish woman, then the child is a mamzer. We don't pass that way, right? That's one statement. B'kiddushin Amar Tab and Gimel Alf. Kiddushin says Rabbi Yochanan Shim ben Lakish Tarbein Amin. They both say havlad mamzer. The child is a mamzer. Right. Question like this. Korbaneda says. The question is, right after the Mishnah, Rabbi Yochanan said, Vasko in Kisei Almana Grusha V'Zeri law. So then, he says, if there's no Almonas in Gerushin, so then she goes back to her father's house, right? Then, it's the opposite. The person that has relations with her is the type of person who could leave her a widow or a divorcee, because that person can contract marriage. Right, and that person raped her, seduced her, and after rape or seduce, she can go back to her father's house to eat truma, assuming she had no kid. Right. If, however, the person who raped her was an eved or another type of person who cannot have widowship or divorce because he doesn't have marriage, an eved can't contract a marriage, so then she's rendered possible with this bia, with these relations, and she can't go back to her father's house. She can't eat truma, right? So it sounds like it's a special Xeris Kosev, which is learned from here, Al Kisiya Mana Grusha. Yet elsewhere, in the two cases quoted immediately at the bottom of Mem Beis and Beis, and the top of Mem Gimel and Rav, Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shlogi say when an Eved has relations with a regular Jewish woman, the kid is a mamzer. So you don't have to come out to any special pasuk of Kisiya Mana Grusha. Widowship or divorce possible potentialities. In and of itself, if the child is a mamzer, so then the father, by having relations with a woman, renders her unfit to kuna, right? So it says, so he said, Rabbi Yochanan, Shimon Lakish, Tarveino, Kedushin Amar, actually, and the Kedushin says, Rabbi Yochanan, Shimon Lakish, Tarveino, and they'll say, Vlad Mamzer, because Mamzer. So it says more, it's not a question. By us, he's talking in his own name. Rabbi Yochanan said in his own name. And there he's saying the name Rabbi Shmuel. So according to Rabbi Shmuel, the kid is considered to be only the minute only left out because the Xeris Kavsiya Amano Grusha. But according to Rabbi Yochanan himself, that's Rabbi Yochanan named Rabbi Shmuel. According to Rabbi Yochanan himself, it's because the kid is a mamzer. Okay, he doesn't need any other pasuk, right? So it says the Gemara, Rabbi Chizkiah lo Amar Kain. Chizkiah didn't learn that way. Rather, he asked questions slightly differently. Same question, different perspective. Rabbi Yochanan seems to contradict himself. Begittin Omer, in the Gittin he says, Hakutim mishum mayim psulim. Why are kutim? Why can't they serve Samaritans? Why are they apostles? Why can't they witnesses? Rabbi Yochanan Shem Shmuel said, mishum goy ve'eved haba. No, not why they can't be witnesses. Sorry. Why can't they marry into the Jewish people? I apologize that. Why can't the kutim marry into the Jewish people? Rabbi Yochanan Shmuel Lakish Tarvein Omrin. Rabbi Yochanan Shmuel said, "Mishum goy ve'eved haba bas Yisrael vlad mamzer b'kidushinu." Because we have a pasuk which says that if a goy and eved has relations with a Jewish woman, so the kid is a mamzer, right? Rabbi Yochanan and Shimon Lakish Tarvein Omrin, they both said have vlad mamzer, right? They both kids say the vlad is a mamzer, the kid is a mamzer. So why do you have to say that the reason is? Because of what?
It's not a thing. It's
oh, it's good. I didn't get it right. Right, the same question we had before. They both say Vlad Mamzer. It says Esheyesh Love Almonas Begerushin. If there's a case where it's an avid who cannot generate widowship or divorce, then she can't go back to her father's house. So it's a contradiction. Which one is it? Is it going to be the case? Is it because of Mamzeris? Is it because of the Xeris of Almonas Begerushin? So here the Gemara doesn't give an answer, because before we could say one is Rabbi Yochanan name, Rabbi Shmuel, and one is Rabbi Yochanan himself, but here both are Rabbi Yochanan himself speaking. So if you can't say that answer anymore. So it says more, nevertheless, Amar Rabbi Shmuel, Amar Rabbi Matanya, the Tzai says, Sokis went out to do business. B'Shamis, or it's the name of the place, I don't know exactly what it is. B'Shamis, I heard Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shmuel, two Amoraim, Rabbi Yochanan, Yeshua, B'nai Yoshua, the children of Yoshua. They said, Ubasko, Enki, Siya, Mono, Grusha, V'Zerain, Law. Ubasko, if she is widowed or divorced and she has no kids, as she Yeshua love, same church before, as she Yeshua love, Amonis, Gerushin, if there's a case where there's a possibility of Amonis and Gerushin, so then, Choseres, and even if she's raped, she'll go back to eat her truma. V'shein lo, love Amonis, Gerushin case where there's no possibility of widowship or divorce, and Choseres, she can't go back to eat truma. V'amris, and we said, Yos, Take. That's a good interpretation. The other interpretation is not a good interpretation. Why? The other interpretation relies on Mamzerus, right? In Mamzer, because it was going about based on the Mamzer shot. So what do you do? Like Rabbi Yeshua says here, but Rabbi Shimon Taimoni, everybody fixes here. Shames am Mamzer lim isha she asur love isur erva. Mamzer only happens when the woman is also on him because of erva. And there's a chi of chores. So by erva, we pass if an Evan and Goy have relations with a Jewish woman, the kid is okay, right? So therefore, if the kid is okay in that situation, you still need another pasuk, not based on mamzeres, because the kid is not a mamzer, to tell us that the Evan or Goy had relations with the Jewish woman, renders her unfit to kuna. Whereas that pasuk, that's what we need. The pasuk tells us that kisi amona grusha. It's a case where after the relation she can be considered to be amona grusha. That's only if we're talking about a Jew who can make a woman a widow or a divorcee, but an Evan can never make a woman a widow or a divorcee. Okay. Says more mamzer posel machil. A mamzer passes a woman from eating truma, or being kohenes, and a mamzer allows a woman to sometimes to eat truma. How so? Beis etzad. Bas Yisrael kohen of a bas Yisrael married a kohen, or bas kohen Yisrael, or a bas kohen married Yisrael. The older men are bas, and they had a daughter. V'ocha bas v'nises le'eved or legoy. This daughter went and married her eved or goy. The older men who ben and had a kid, not according to Shimon HaTzimoni, but according to the other opinion. So this kid had raised a mamzer, is a mamzer. So nevertheless, and he's a grandson. If his grandmother was a bas Yisrael married to Kohen, tocha b'truma. She can continue eating truma. Why? Because she has children from this marriage, grandchildren. Now, be it the grandchildren themselves are mamzerim, but they're remnant, a vestige of this marriage for her to the Kohen or to Yisrael, and therefore leaves her previous status in place, right? And vice versa, Bas Kohen Yisrael, therefore she was Bas Kohen married to Yisrael, because of this vestige of a marriage, Lo Tocha B'Truma, she may not eat Truma. Now it says, Malesa do plead out the Rav. Doesn't argue on Rav. The Rav on my Rav says, Goy ve'evet shabal bas Yisrael vad kosher, just in the previous, at the end of the previous one. When a Goy ve'evet have relations with a good Jewish woman, the kid is okay. That's a more amazing answer. The Bavli says, yeah, but there are other Mishnayos that's arguing. This Mishnah is going like those who argue. So this one, no, Puzzle, you're talking about the Goy Puzzle of Evet Puzzle. You're talking about a Goy who renders her unfit, or an Evet who renders her unfit. What's a Goy Puzzle who renders her unfit? It's a Goy from Ammon or Moab, who can't ever convert. But or an Evet who rendered her unfit, right? So who can't come into the congregation of Avam Yisrael. So you're talking about a Goy who renders her unfit. That's why she cannot become. She can't become once she has relations with Ammon Moab. Thank you. Moab, then she can no longer have. What?
According to this view, the blood's still known.
The blood is still mamzer, right? So.
No, I'm just saying it's. They're talking about Tochal Truma. She can still be Truma. But what happens though is, whether Truma or not Truma, the blood is a mamzer.
Right, it says.
Rav says the blood will not be a mamzer.
But even Rav would have to learn our Mishnah that mamzer is lav dafka. Means if the Evet or Goy has relations with her, and it's an Evet or Goy which comes from one of the improper nations, so then she is rendered unfit by that. Even though it says.
So you're saying the word mamzer in the position is lav dafka?
That's a must be according to this Gemara, which is difficult. I concede you the point. That's very though.
I guess I would have said that no, that the standard established by Rav is not acting according to his Talmud. That in fact there's still another standard aside from what the Kiva says. Mm-hmm. The other standard is that you have the Ummah that with possible level of alcohol, the child becomes a mamzer. It doesn't have to be a chiyuv kares, doesn't have to be an iser erva. It's a chiyuv kares, and that in itself, with possible, has the effect of. Maybe it's reflective on the mother and prevent her, therefore, from eating truma too.
Right. I'm not sure you don't say that. I don't have an answer for you. I don't know what to do with the Mishnah. The Gemara, it's a question about when the Gemara doesn't drive with the Mishnah. The Gemara says that where the Goy is possible, the evidence is possible, so then that's discussion on Mishnah, and that's why. Once the Goy or Evet had excuse me. No, I have to repeat what I said before. Mamzer means here Ammoni, Moavi, or Givoni, or whatever it is.
It's
Lav Dafka. Which is not so terrible because Ammoni and Moavi have the same status as a Mamzer. So it says if the grandchild, is a progeny of the daughter of this woman and some Ammoni, Moavi, or Givoni, so then the child is a Mamzer halachically, even though not necessarily according to the original definition, and that's where we have a problem. Anyway, switching gears dramatically. Kohen Gadol. The grand is a Kohen Gadol. So sometimes he's bad. Okay, so how so Bas Kohen now by now you all know the rigmarole. Bas Kohen Shani says Yisrael, if a daughter of a Kohen marries Yisrael, the older men are Bas, and they have a daughter. Hocha Bas Menisis the Kohen, the daughter goes and marries the Kohen. The older men are Bas, Ben, and has a kid. Harez the Royalios Kohen Gadol, the grandson will be Kohen Gadol. Om Mishamash Gam Mizbech, serve on the Mizbech. Machlas Imo, he can allow his mother to eat, who was not a Bas Kohen, right? His mother just married a Kohen. But Upaisos Amimo, but his grandmother, he can't eat Truma. It's his grandmother who was once a Kohenes, but married Yisrael. And they had a daughter who's Israelis, but married a Kohen. And they have a child who's now the Kohen Gadol. That Kohen Gadol allows his mother, who is Israelis, to eat Truma, right? But this allows his grandmother, who was a Kohenes, from eating Truma, because of whom they married, and how the marriage relationship still remains even after everything is said and done. And Zois Ameres, this grandmother says, Lo kibni Kohen Gadol. Shouldn't be like my, this is his son, but it means grandson. Not my grandson, the Kohen Gadol. Shu Posleni min Truma doesn't allow me to eat Truma. Okay? Taya Bar Kapar, when Kapar said, last previously, a kid Ben Yomo was a day old, Posel Umachil. He allows his mother either to be puzzle or to be ochel truma, depending on his status. Came back Mishnah Masnisa. You should know the Mishnah. The end of the Mishnah says lo kibni. It's like I just said lo ben bito. It's not like my grandson. Kohen Gadol shu passos me truma. The Kohen Gadol passes me from the truma. Okay, it's also now just repeat the Mishnah. Basko she's Yisrael. Kohen is married Yisrael. The older man of Bas, and they had a daughter who's Israelis. Ubas Yisrael, and this daughter Israel, she needs to the Kohen married a Kohen. The older man of Ben and had a son. Venisu and Venisu Shneim Zeh Lazeh. Oh no, this is different than the Mishnah. I just read like the Mishnah when I thought it was the Mishnah. It's not. It's the same idea. Again, Bas Kohen, she's Yisrael. Bas Kohen marries Yisrael. The older men are Ben. She had Bas, and she has a daughter, Mazel Tov. Then there's another woman who's a Bas Yisrael, she's a Kohen. Bas Yisrael marries a Kohen. The older men are Ben, and he has a son, Mazel Tov. These same names Elazeh, and the daughter and son married each other, right? But only the Ben and they had a son. It really is the same case. Mishnah just explained it. Harez the royalios Kohen Gadol. This son is suitable to Kohen Gadol. Oim Shamash Gav Yisrael from his back. Machlos Imo allows his mother to eat truma, even though she's Israelis. Upalsos Emimo, but renders his grandmother unfit. So Samaritans, she says, "Lo ben biti Kohen Gadol. It shouldn't be like my grandson, the Kohen Gadol. Shupal Semi or truma, which doesn't allow me to eat truma." Okay, new parak. Some of you either uncircumcised or tummy in any way, shape, or form, may not eat truma. The shame v'avdeim, however, even though he himself may not eat truma, the shame his wife v'avdeim or his slaves, yochlu they may eat. Somebody has one of those blemishes with their genitals. They and their slaves can eat. The shame their wives can eat because their wives are rendered unfit by having had relations with them. However, she had not had relations with her yet since he became a P'tuadaka Krushavcha. Since he got these blemishes, then they are allowed to continue to eat truma until they have relations to become possible.
Why is the wife of an Oriel still able to eat truma?
There's no Bia Psula, not married Orel. He's a hemophiliac.
Yeah, I understand.
It doesn't pass her.
Even though he can't eat.
Right. Only if he has a blemish in the genitals.
The Oriel is not considered a blemish.
It's not like a Psula Dako, that's right. Says my Ishish. It says a man of certain types. A man who's Sarur or Zav, and any kind of man, it says Ish twice, is not allowed to eat truma. We learned that the Rabbi wrote to include an Orel, uncircumcised can eat truma. So who says, Ish Rabbi Soroni, maybe it comes to include a person who's One, who's in the first day of El, said he can't eat truma. Said no. Ksiv kol zar lo yochel kodesh. Says any foreigner can't eat kodesh. Mishum zara society chas be that you were made foreign to the kumra. Kuna v'lo aside the mishum anina, and aninus does not make you foreign to the kuna as opposed to arelus. Says more Rabbi Tiufa Samuka. Interesting name. He had Rabbi Tiufa the red. Boy, kum Rabbi Yossi asked for Rabbi Yossi. Onemar, maybe I'll say you zara society chla v'lo aside mishum arla. Maybe I have to use Zorus and not or foreignness and not Orla. Maybe Orla is not foreign. Maybe Oina is foreign. So it says, more skipping the next two lines, it skips the next two words. Karmei skips next to the word. Armalese said, Me'achish kos v'echad marbe. One pasuk includes, v'echad and one pasuk excludes, right? So it says one pasuk includes, one pasuk says ish, which includes an RL. One says kol zarech hakosh means only a zar can't eat truma, not anybody else, right? But here inclusion is inclusion those who are exempt, and exclusion means exclusion those who are liable, right? So it says the Gemara. Since one is an inclusion in who can't eat truma, and was an exclusion in who cannot eat truma. Marbe said, "I'll include the oil that he cannot eat truma." Because he's lacking something in his body. I preclude an onain from not eating truma. She is not lacking anything in his body, so therefore he can continue to eat truma despite the fact that he's onain. Now this is all going to keep with darshan to ish. However, Krishma doesn't darshan ish because it says Dibra Torah Klashmi, and the Torah speaks like people speak. So how does it know an Orel can't eat truma? So Tiny Rabbi Shmuel says, Namar Toshav Sachir Pesach, it says that a Toshav in Sachir, a person who is dwelling with you or is hired by you by Pesach, and he is not an Orel, he doesn't impede upon you from eating the Korban Pesach. Namar Toshav Sachir B'Shuma, it says where's Toshav and Sachir by Truma. That they can't eat Truma. Ma Toshav V'Sachir, morning of Pesach, just like by Pesach, where it says Toshav V'Sachir, Pasal Bosa Oren, Orel can't eat the Korban Pesach. After Toshav V'Sachir, Amar Truma, so to Xer Shava by Truma, Pasal Bosa Orel can't eat Korban Pesach. Rabbi Chagai asked, Ima Toshav V'Sachir, Amar Pesach, Pasal Bosa Onen. Wait a minute, an Onen can't eat Korban Pesach either. So if it says Toshav V'Sachir by Pesach, an Onen can't eat Truma. After Toshav V'Sachir Pesach, after Toshav V'Sachir, Amar B'Truma, Nifsa Bosa Onen. Let's say also by Toshav V'Sachir by Truma. Then Onen can't eat Truma. So it says more, Rabbi Hila said, now here the Shai Teretz Yisrael throws in a lot. And in truth, Shai Teretz Yisrael is not the only one. There's an Ephraim and the Ben Aryeh at the bottom. Ben Aryeh was Rabbi Yisrael Slaughter's father. They both throw in a lot of words here, a lot of concepts. It says, it's based on a fundamental question in Bechoros. In Bechoros it says that you put any animal into a pen, and only being counted for Meiser Behema, with the exclusion of an animal which is kilayim, right, mixed breed, an animal which is treifa, an animal which was born by cesarean, an animal less than 7 days old, or an orphaned animal. And the Bible says, how do we know that? So the Bible says, well, I shouldn't say, first of all, he says, but not a tumtum adregus. Tumtum adregus can go into the pen to be counted. Right? Because it says, hakol nichnas medil lisaser. Everywhere it goes in, including tumtum adregus. So it says, I understand. The Bible in Bechorah says, I don't understand. How do you know that these animals can't go into the pen to be tight? Because we learn from karbanos. By karbanos, however, tumtum adregus can't be a valid korban. Right, so why do you not bar tumtum adregus from going into the pen? So the Yerushalmi learns here and says, the Yerushalmi, the Bible gives an answer, whatever it answers, I don't know offhand, but the Yerushalmi gives an answer and says, I'll tell you why. Because I only learn from karbanos things written locally by karbanos, but tumtum and adregus that they can't serve as karbanos are themselves learnt out and extrapolated to karbanos. So it's not a double bridge. It's like ein lameidim lamed min alamed b'kachim. You can't learn one thing from another thing which is itself derived in kachim. So therefore, only things which are stated explicitly in the parsha of karbanos as being possible are transferred over to Ma'aseh Behema, not things which in and of themselves were gathered into the parsha of karbanos from elsewhere. And that's what the Gemara is about to say here too. What do we learn from Pesach? Only Arel, which is stated explicitly by Korban Pesach, but only which is learnt out, schlepped into Pesach, that's not learnt out and taken out over the bridge into the other areas of Allah, right? So it says, again, Rabbi Hila said, I'm going to read my notes here. K'madat amatamon, like you say over there in Bechoros. Lo lamdu tachas, we only learn the Xer Shava of tachas between Karbanos and Meiser Behema. El dvarim more in Parsha for things mentioned explicitly, but as being unfit for Karbanos, by korbanos, as opposed to tumtum adrenus makom acher boro tumtum adrenus which are learned out elsewhere. So so too here lo lamdu tosha v'sachar we only learn the parallel to Korban Pesach. El dvarim more in parsha for things which are mentioned in the parsha, which precludes again onen, which is not mentioned in the parsha. Okay, now we're 4 lines down after I read all that. We're at the Meiser Sheni, right? Says more onen Meiser Sheni ba. Says more. Wait a minute. Why don't we learn out from Meiser Sheni? Then onen can't eat truma. Let's make Chavachomer. Right? Avon boy. This is a continuation of the question. Avon boy asks the question. V'tei truma asur la'onen mekavachomer. Then onen be forbidden to eat truma v'kavachomer. Umay ima meiser shumutu l'zorim. Meiser which is permissible to non-kohanim. Right? Meiser Sheni. Harei onen and onen may not eat it. It says lo achalti b'onen mimeno. I have to say I didn't eat when I was onen. Truma she'asur l'zorim. Truma which is forbidden for non-kohanim. Eno din shetei asur l'onen which is not kavachomer which is forbidden to onen. Says more no. Lo ima mater meiser shutom mechitza. Meiser different. No one meiser requires that it be eaten not by onanim because it has to be eaten within the walls of Yerushalmi. It's like something inside the base of Mikdash, and inside the base of Mikdash you can't have aninus, right? So as opposed to truma, right? Truma she'en tu mechitza doesn't require walls, so maybe there's no such requirement that a person not be onen. So there. So in any event, getting back to the actual derivation, we learn how since it's a bridge. One includes things the others does not. The other includes things the other one does not. Lord he said there's no choice but to learn one from each other. In other words, we learn kachim but from Orel and Orel from Pesach from Truma and Truma from Pesach. Kachim Maushi Asur and Ba'orel. Do we learn the Kachim Asur by Orel? So this is a learner, you can't learn it. Lami mina Pesach, it's learned from Pesach, you can't, and Yochel Shem Bushvir sets, and Pesach might be more severe. Basically now allowed to break bones by other karbonos, you're allowed to break bones. So maybe there's no parallel. V'lomina Truma, and you can't learn from Truma that other karbonos are also by Orel, Shulami mina Lami, because it's deriving from the derived. Because Truma is itself derived from Pesach. So you can't learn other country from Truma, which is learned out itself from Pesach. Have a Seif Chalomar, so you have to say another Yerushalmi. Mimenu umimenu. It says mimenu in both places. Ma mimenu shnemar a Pesach, the word mimenu, which is mentioned by Pesach, postbos oil, and oil can't eat pollen or Pesach. Af mimenu shnemar kachim, so when it says mimenu about kachim, postbos and oil can't eat other karbonos. Okay. Continuing further with our line of inquiry, kachim maushi asur lonik are kachim forbidden to an onik, right? Let's say mimenu. Let's say Yerushalmi. My mimenu shenamar b'meiser, just like it says mimenu by meiser, possible only can eat meiser. Af mimenu shenamar Pesach, so the mimenu it says by Pesach, possible also to an onin is not allowed to eat Korban Pesach, right? It says more. Wait a minute. Mufnahu. Let's go back to the previous drush, where we made the Gzeir Shava of Tosha v'Sacher. Is that an extra word? Mufne means where the word is not necessary for some other purpose. Because if Gzeir Shava is not Mufne, you just chuck it. So let's ask about Tosha v'Sacher. Is a Mufne that we can learn out from Pesach, then Orel is forbidden to Truma because of the Gzeir Shava. Is that word superfluous? It says Gemara. It's not mufne, it's used for a drasha. But it's not superfluous. Because there are times we learn, Tashav Zekana Kininola. A Tashav who can't eat Truma is one who is bought for eternity. But he's not an Eved Kanani. Only Avanim Kananim can eat Truma, right? Sach is Zekana Kininola. Because Sachir is a person who's hired. He's hired for several years, not for all eternity. They both can eat Truma. So says the word Yoimar Toshav. Let it mention Toshav. Matam lo Sachir. Why does it say Sachir? If Akani Kinyan Oilam, if somebody is bought forever, Toshav cannot eat Truma. Akani Kinyan Shoim Oichel. Somebody is only bought temporarily. He could eat it. Pashi can't eat. So why do you have to write Toshav and Sachir? Just write Toshav. It says more no, because the words are not directly linked to their etymology. Ilukei, that was the case I would have said Toshav Zakani Kinyan Shonim. I would say a Toshav is somebody who's acquired for temporary, and that a person is required for every taka can eat truma in his master's house. Therefore, I had to use both words. When it says sachir v'toshav, sachir l'lame, the sachir who's a temporary employee comes to teach us how the toshav shulkanekiyom, that toshav is a permanent employee, and neither of them can eat truma. So toshav and sachir is not mufneh. If it's not mufneh, I need it for the drosha to tell me how long they're employed. So then how can I make Yerushalmi at the Pesach? All right, Masya. So Masya says a fascinating thing. You hear the carbonated changes the girsa. If you look at the carbonated 5 lines at the bottom, he says, Harikas in Amram Miyasya, Mikaim receive kol arel v'chol ben necha lo ilcha bo. It says by Pesach an orel and somebody who's a mumar, ben necha is a mumar, can't eat korban Pesach. So therefore, Kamisha Mufna Mishneit Starim. I don't need the words Toshav and Sachir, right? Says the Gemara. The Gemara says the Toshav and Sachir by Kressu is superfluous, because who is this Toshav and Sachir talking about? If it's talking about a Toshav and Sachir, actually Israelim, so they have their own independent chiyuv to eat korban Pesach, right? They have their own independent chiyuv. So you know about Toshav and Sachir or a goy, so I already know that if you have an orel in your household, that you can't eat truma, because it says chorel yochabo. So therefore, it's superfluous the toshav and sachir, and therefore it should be kamishu mufne mishnei tzayim. You take the word toshav and sachir is superfluous, because if they Yisraelim, they have their own independent chiyuv, and if they're goyim, they're not allowed to be orel, because I know you're not allowed to have a goy who's orel in your household. So that word's toshav and sachir extra. You take them, you split them apart. You put one by truma and the other one by Pesach, and use them to allow you to make the Gzeir Shava, Toshav V'Sachir, and not refute the Gzeir Shava. Because again, Gzeir Shava words not moved in words aren't superfluous words. Lemeidim Rishivi you learn out, but you can then refute it. A Gzeir Shava, the superfluous words, once it's superfluous words, you cannot refute the Gzeir Shava. Okay? New topic. Well, actually, it's not a new topic, it's a continuation, but on a tangent. Al Daikid Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Kiva, lays the Dover Nemar Toshav V'Sachir B'Truma. Why does it say Toshav V'Sachir and Truma? I already know ish. L'Rabbo says Orel to tell us that an Orel can't eat Truma. So why need the Gzeir Shava? You don't need the Gzeir Shava at all. So that's a more fascinating thing. Kidam Rabbi Hila b'Shem Rabbi Yasa. Rabbi Hila said to Rabbi Yasa, Ha'okeh avodim arelim min hagoy hamanas l'molon. You buy avodim who are uncircumcised from a goy with the intent to circumcise them. So now the Shari throws in a whole line here. Says it should be Ke'evid Yishu. You bought them with the intention of circumcising them, you must circumcise them. If you don't, right, you circumcise them against their will too. Take the knife and you go after them. But what if you bought avodim without the intent? This is not in the Gemara yet. What if you bought them without the intent to circumcise them? Like nowadays. If you would buy an Eved today, you couldn't circumcise him, right? I mean, now, slavery is illegal, but let's say 150 years ago. You couldn't circumcise him, right? So would they impede upon you from eating the Korban Pesach? Would they impede upon, are you not allowed to possess an uncircumcised slave in your house? So how can you have a Korban Pesach if you have an uncircumcised slave? Nevertheless, you can't moil them against your will because you stipulate not going to be moil them. And now Rabbi Yasa b'Shem Rabbi Yochanan says, go last on the Gemara. Shiur Baba b'Shem Rabbi Yochanan says, Halokech avodim re'elim min hagoy amanas should be shalom molon with the intent not to be mal them. Afilu molon, even if you did mal them, lo yochlu b'truma. Even if you did mal them, you can't eat truma. Why? Because they're not considered to be fully yours. Avodim are only considered to be fully yours if you bought them with the intent to be mal them, and then. As if you didn't mal them yet, you can't eat a Korban Pesach because they're your avodim. Avodim which are not bought with the intent to be mal them are not fully their avodim. Your avodim. So therefore, even if you didn't mal them, you can still eat your Korban Pesach because they're really just like hired help. But the flip side of that is, even if you did mal them, they still can't eat truma. You know why? Because they're not really your avodim. They're goyim living in your household, but not really your avodim. Fascinating concept, right? So that's the Gemara says here, and that's learned out. And that's learned out from Toshav V'Sachir, right? According to Rabbi Akiva, right? Toshav V'Sachir. Yeah, we're going. Toshav V'Sachir is learned out from the Toshav V'Sachir teaches us that a person who's a Toshav V'Sachir, even if you did mal him, he can't eat truma. I have to go anyway because I have to be home at 10:30. But Tosh even if you didn't mal him, he can't eat truma because you bought him initially not to be mal him. So therefore, it's a goy who was bought with the intent not to be mal him. If you didn't mal him, he's not your eved, knaini, and he can't eat truma in your household.